Okay, so I've been getting this question a lot, so I figured I might as well just make a quick video kind of explaining at least my viewpoint on what teams look for when they are bringing on a new player. A lot of people out there are playing paintball with the ultimate goal of getting to the top of the sport, and that is playing professional paintball. I played pro back in the early 2011, 12, 13-ish, that era, but I've been involved with Uprising for over a decade and have been involved in a handful of bringing on new people. And while I might not have the highest paintball IQ, I do know that these are some of the things that we look for and that I look for in picking up our team and just adding new people to the roster. So first off is mental attitude. Positive mental attitude is huge. We do not want to have someone around that is kind of negative, that is going to be bringing the team down and bringing everyone else around them down. We do not want to have a negative person around the team, and that is huge. So attitude is first, for me at least, and I'm sure other people, this is maybe a fairly generic list, and I think some people will play more into other pieces than others, but this is my list. So yeah, attitude is first. Next up is skill set. Obviously, they need to be able to play ball well. Also, this is in no particular order from here on out after attitude, but skill set is huge. Obviously, you have to be able to play a wide different amount of things out there on the field. Like, yes, we want you to be specialized. We want you to have your one area where you are needed, but you need to be well-rounded in that area. So you can't just be good at one small little thing and useless at everything else. So being able to kind of have a well-rounded, set of skills to play ball is huge. If you can only snap shoot and you can't do anything else, that's a problem. So having a well-rounded paintball skill set is important. Next up is, I want a standout player out there. So, like when you're watching other people play, there's always those people on the team that stand out. And at least if you want to get eyes on you, if you want people to understand what you bring to the table, being a standout player is important. That's not to say don't, teamwork is huge. That's another piece on this list. You have to work well with your team. You have to be able to get along with your team. That goes back to attitude, but at the same time, standing out. Like, every team has that standout player on that, and I'm sure that's how people get swooped, because they were a standout player on that divisional team and they got swooped, or they're the standout player on that pro team and they got swooped. So that's another piece of the puzzle. You want to stand out. Figure out, what do you do that can make you stand out from the bunch? If you're at a tryout and you know that they're looking for a snake player, what can you do to stand out from all the other snake players? So figure out a way. If everyone's knocking on the front door, you go around to the back. What can you do to stand out and look different from the crowd or be different? Next up is, this kind of goes into that. It's having a specialized position. Like, every field is going to need, or every team is going to need someone that does a certain thing. If the team is missing that certain thing, and you can bring that certain thing to the table, that's huge. And they're going to look into that and they're going to want that. So it's good to know the team that you're trying out for. It's good to know what the team's strengths and weaknesses are, and kind of where you could fill in. For example, if the team that you're trying to get on has 2 killer center players on their team, and you're a killer center player, they might not need you just simply because your specialized position is not optimized for what they need. They might actually need a Dorito player or a snake player or a back guy or something like that. So it's important to be specialized, but also understand where your specialty actually has an important role, because that's, a team that has 2 centers isn't going to need a 3rd center, for example. So something to keep in mind on that end. Next up is, this kind of goes back to what I said earlier, is being a team player. You got to get along with your guys. You got to be able to be someone that they can count on. You got to be, put the team first. And that's pretty straightforward, but that is something we look for. No I in team, for example. If you're out there and it's me, and you're not contributing in a positive way to the team, like, no interest in that. Next up is your availability. That's huge, especially as it's funny to see, because as Uprising, the average age on Uprising's gone up, the availability goes down. Other life commitments, other responsibilities, jobs, wives, girlfriends, family, all that stuff. What is your availability? If you can only play 1 or 2 times a month at the pro level, that's unfortunately just, unless you're a superstar, that's just not going to cut it. And even then, if you are a superstar, playing ball with this little guy, by the way, but even if you are a superstar, you're not going to be really sharpening your sword too much if you're only playing a couple times a month. So if your availability is, yeah, I can play 2 or 3 times a week, that's huge, especially if you are a divisional player trying to work your way through the ranks to get to that pro level, because that's a huge piece of it, is really sharpening that sword. So having a lot of availability and also being able to attend all the practices is huge. So you need to be available. That's definitely something we look for. Next up is consistency. So yeah, if you're going to be playing a lot, that's great, but having a hot day, cold day, hot day, cold day, hot day, cold day, that's something that we look for and notice and don't like to see. That's a problem if some days you're hot, some days you're not. Now, we're not saying you need to be hot every single day forever, but you need to be consistent. You know, even on the bad days, consistency is important. So both consistency on the field with how you play, but also how consistent you are with all those other things that we've gone over so far. So, you know, we don't want you to be a team player some days and not other days. We don't need you to have, you know, whatever. Be consistent in all things you do, because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Next up is your dedication. And this kind of falls under the stuff we talked about already, but not 100%, because you really have to be fully dedicated. If you want to compete at the top level, you have to be ready to make sacrifices. You have to be ready to put the team and put the sport really high up on your totem pole of priority list. And you need to, there's sacrifices, there's a lot of dedication that it's going to take to be able to compete at the top level and play at your best. And if you're not dedicated and you're not ready to make those sacrifices, then you're not ready to play at the pro level. So that's another piece that you really need to be ready for as well. And it's an interesting piece that you see, you know, when you see professional paintball players retire, this is a big piece of, I think, why they do. The dedication is huge, and it's tough to commit so much time, energy, and, you know, attention to a sport that's really unforgiving, and just, yeah. So I think that's kind of where a lot of the pro players fizzle out, is just from that level of dedication. It's really tough to sacrifice, you know, 20 weekends plus a month, almost a year, you know, to traveling to play paintball. So it's tough, but the dedication is huge, and that's something that I don't think when I was young coming up in the sport, I didn't really realize how much that would be a big piece of the puzzle when it came to playing professional paintball. I'm coming up, I got only a couple more here. Your location, that is a really big piece, especially for like kind of at least a team like Uprising. We want people that are local to us. One, we love supporting the Northwest. We love supporting and giving opportunity to young and upcoming paintball players. It's crazy because the team has been slowly, we've been adding a few more people here and there, and it's all been from the ground up local people. So that's been really cool as well. But it's something that teams take into account. If you have to travel and fly to every single practice, if you're on a bigger team, they have to pay to fly you there. And if you're on a less funded team, you have to fly yourself there. It's tough to, you know, it's an extra dynamic to be like, oh yeah, we have to coordinate your flights up to get here for this practice. Oh, you can only come to these 2 practices before the event. Like, you're going to get less playtime. You're going to get less looks if you have to travel. So it's better to be near where the team's based out of if you're trying out for that team or want to play on that team. So unless you're a superstar, like, being centrally located to that team, I think is very important to be able to get looks and get in front of them. Plus, you'll get to know the dudes more. They'll get to see your style. You know, it's interesting when we're looking at players on the back end and we're talking about potential pickups. A lot of the stuff that comes up in conversation is, oh yeah, like, I've seen that guy kick ass out there. He's a standout player. I've been watching him for years. I think he's ready. Or on the other end of the coin, no, I've seen him at the field all the time. I don't think I've ever actually looked at him play or noticed him standing out. So that's another thing too. By being local, you're kind of going to be on the radar of these people you're trying to play with as well. Let's see. I got a couple more here. Last one, maybe last 2. Potential for improvement. That's a really big one, especially for younger up and coming players that might not have played at a really high division before, but show a lot of potential. But even with like higher divisional players, the ability to take in feedback and show improvement is super important. And that's something that happens over a long period of time, but also even in practice, from a game to a game, right? Like, after the point, if we say, hey, we noticed you did this wrong, you're doing this like that, you should try this. Being able to take that in and immediately improve is huge. being open and willing to take that constructive feedback and criticism and use that to build you up to be a better player. That's something that we pay close attention to. If you're able to adapt on the fly and listen to the feedback that people who have been there before and have a little more experience than you are bringing up. So being able to adapt, like on the micro level in the game to game, listening to that, but also on the big level of slowly showing, good signs for improvement down the road. There's been plenty of times where we picked up players that were definitely not anywhere close to playing pro when we said, okay, you have a spot on the team. And now they're standout players. And I think that's a really cool opportunity that shows a lot about the character if you're able to, come into an environment that's above your skill set and then use that to propel or boost you up to that level. And by playing with people that are at that level, it should help you get there as well if you're open to it and if you take it all and try to let it build you up and take everything they have to say and learn from it all. So that's huge as well, and something that I don't know if that's like super talked about, but it is huge. Your ability to grow into the spot is something, at least in a lot of our discussions about bringing new people on, that's it. Because that's a good thing to point out too, that when pro teams are picking up new players, especially divisional players, like we are not assuming the player we bring on is ready to play pro immediately, right? Like we are assuming that they're going to need work and they're going to need to get into our systems and kind of learn how we do things and build them up to get to that level. So we're looking at where they can be, not where they are necessarily. So that's another huge piece of it as well. And last but not least is culture fit. Team culture and dynamics change from team to team. And there's definitely camps I would never want to be involved with because I don't like the people running it, or the people have bad attitudes or whatever. And I think that's the same for anyone. Like there's going to be some teams that you mesh well with and you fit right in. And there's going to be some teams where you stand out like a sore thumb and are just not a good fit, square peg, round hole type deal. So I think that's another piece too, is one that you might not be good for the team, or the team might not be good for you. But that's definitely something to consider as well, especially on a team like Uprising. Like we have a very tight knit core group of dudes, and we've known each other since we were young guns players, like straight up decade, 15, close to 20 years for some of us. So that's huge. And coming into environments like that, being able to fit in with that team and get along with them and understand their mannerisms and their little, that's a big piece of it as well. So being able to actually fit in with the team is a big piece of it because you're going to be spending a lot of time and a lot of your life with these guys if you're actually doing the dedication part and traveling to events and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm rambling at this point, but that's my little list of what I think, what I know we look for when it comes to bringing on new people to a professional paintball team. I hope you found this informative. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have. I'm going to keep throwing the ball for my dogs and hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Peace.